All right, so in our third video, we're going to talk about order of operations. Very important when it comes to anything math related. But we're going to start with a little fun ignite here, or it's an estimation. So what I want you to do, it's probably much easier to see it on my screen than it is probably on your piece of paper. So I'm going to really zoom up on it. I want you to estimate the total number of cheese balls in all 6 containers. So before, obviously I review the answer, what are some questions maybe you have? Hopefully you have a question as well, how many are in one? How many cheese balls are in one container? And once you can estimate that, you can get a better estimation of the total of all 6. All right, so hopefully you've had some time to get an estimate. I want to talk about how I would estimate this before revealing the answer. In fact, I don't even know the answer, so you're going to really see me problem solving here. So what I would do is I think I would count, because I know how to find volume. And we haven't talked about that yet, but I think I'd find the diameter or the radius of this. And so let's see, I'd count how many balls. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to round that to 5. It would make it the radius. And I know that the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. So doing 3.14, my radius being 5, squaring that. And then I'm going to do the height. I'm going to count the height of it by counting how many balls go from top to bottom. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's kind of hard. I might have to use that second one there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's say maybe 11, maybe 12. So I'm thinking maybe there's about 860 in each one. So 860 times 6, we're looking at 5,160. That would be my guess. So I'm going to write that. Let's do 5,160. There's my estimation. So let's see if I am correct. Ooh, I was off by about, not too much actually. So the correct answer is 4,416. So moving on with what we have in store for today, like I said, is order of operations. So we live by the acronym PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which is what maybe many of you know. So let's talk about, well, what does each of them mean? So we know P is the parentheses. Okay, let me zoom up on that. Now, this is technically any grouping symbol. So a grouping symbol is technically or most often seen as parentheses. Man, this is really glitchy. But we could also see brackets. In some degree, a fraction bar is a grouping symbol. E is exponent. We know M and D is multiply and divide. Now, one of the most commonly misunderstood things is that it's whichever one comes first, going left or right. So I'm going to actually include that, or going from left to right, not left or right. What am I saying? So whichever comes first, going left to right. Okay, so if I see division first, I'm going to do that first, even though a multiplication I see comes in before the division in my order of operations. And similar to that is with addition and subtraction. Oh, come on. There we go. So it's whichever one comes first from going from left to right. So what does simplify mean? So simplifying means to essentially reduce there's another, why is it glitchy? So sorry. Reduce or condense, kind of like combining like terms. Okay, so we have more a shorter expression. What is distributive property? It's a property where it's repeated multiplication. Now, great question. However, it's not really something I want to touch upon quite yet. We're going to get into that in another unit. And so I'm actually not going to answer that question. And so you can go ahead and cross it out. We'll tackle that at a later date. However, some of these other questions are important, such as what is an exponent. So let's just kind of start with, well, what does it look like? So for instance, let's say I had 3, oh my goodness, that is way too large. Once again. So let's say I had 3 to the power of 2. So my exponent here is that number 2. And what it means is repeated multiplication, right? It's just simply 3 times 3, which is then 9, not 6. What is a square root? Another word for square root is radical, so that's why you've seen it in parentheses. So we've seen it a couple times in the last few videos. So for instance, the square root of 16. And what that's asking is what number multiplied by itself gives me 16? So 2 times 2 gives me 4, 3 times 3 we know is 9, and so the square root of 16 would be 4. And then finally, what is an absolute value of a number? So the symbol looks like 2 parallel lines, and there is a number on the inside. And what that actually is asking is what is the distance that is from 0? So distance, a number is from 0. So in this example, if I'm asking you what is the absolute value of 7, well, what's the distance that 7 is from 0? Well, that would be 7. So the importance of answering those questions was to make sure that we knew how to, simplify an expression by following order of operations. And so I think it would be helpful. Let's write out that acronym of PEMDAS at the top. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And remembering that the M and the D are interchangeable, as well as the A and the S, or the adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So in this first example, we've got only 2 operations, right? So I see division and addition. I would want to do the division first. So 20 divided by 4, I know is 5. 5 plus 10, 15. Going down to example 2, so we're just going to kind of tackle the left column, then the right. Actually, I take that back. I kind of want to go back and forth. So left to right, left to right. So now that we've done example 1, I want you to try the next one on your own. So in the next one, I find it interesting. So we see subtraction. Believe it or not, we have multiplication here. I'm going to abbreviate that. And then we have addition. So multiplication comes first, right? So let's do that multiplication. 2 times 4. That's going to give me 8. So that's 7 minus 8, then plus 13. So here's a great example of where, we've got addition and subtraction, but the subtraction comes first, and that's fine. We're going to tackle that from left to right. So 7 minus 8 is -1. Now, you don't technically have to write that in parentheses, so let me erase that really quick. So I have -1, then plus 13. Okay, that's going to give me 12. So now we've got example 2. Let's identify what operations we got going on here. We got addition. We've got a subtraction. Ooh, we even have multiplication. That was sneaky. I almost didn't catch that one. And then we've got an exponent. So according to my order of operations, I want to do parentheses first. And this is something I didn't really touch upon in the last example, because oftentimes I'll say, I'll get a student that go, well, hey, Mrs. Lewis, we had parentheses here. Why didn't we? I guess we technically did it first. In this case, parentheses are just actually acting as a way to separate the 2 numbers, and then that means multiplication. So that doesn't always mean we do it first. And so comparing these 2 is actually a good example of that. So I have parentheses, but again, what's on the inside of them, I'm not going to simplify, nor am I going to do the multiplication first. I'm actually going to do the exponent first, because that's what it calls for in my order of operations. So I'm going to rewrite this as 22 plus, and then I'm going to evaluate that 5 squared, which is 25, or 5 times 5. The next thing I'm going to do is this multiplication here. And so, again, kind of just carrying down what I have left, but I know 7 times 6 is 42. Then I've got 22 plus 25. I'm going to do my addition and subtraction from left to right. This is going to give me 47 minus 42, and that leaves me with 5. So go ahead and try the next one on your own. So similar to the one that I just did, we've got exponents, we've got parentheses, we've got addition and subtraction. So what do we do first? And so hopefully you tackled the exponent. So 3 squared, or 3 times 3 is 9. And then we can go ahead and bring down the rest of this problem. Now what I find kind of interesting here is we actually have 2 areas in which we're multiplying. So we've got 9 times 4 and 12 times 2. We can actually do those at the same time. So bringing down this 9 times 4 I know is 36, and 12 times 2 is 24. So I can go ahead and do all the multiplication that I see. And I can go ahead, now I'll go ahead and just do any addition and subtraction, starting from whatever I see first, left to right. So 9 plus 36, that's going to give me 45. 45 minus 24 is going to give me 21. All right, so example number 3. So I like this one because we have parentheses. And those parentheses have a number out front of that, which is a -6. So what we have to do first is we need to simplify what's on the inside of the parentheses, and then we can worry about what's surrounding it. So even within the parentheses, I have to make sure I'm following order of operations correctly. And I want to start with the division. 15 divided by 3 is going to give me 5. So really what's in the parentheses is 2 plus 5. Well, I know 2 plus 5 is 7. And so now that I've simplified it, let's bring down everything else that was around it originally. And now I can go ahead and do the multiplication. So -6 times 7 is -42 minus 20. Ooh, okay, this is a good one. Remember, kind of all the way back to what was at our second video, we talked about where is the number starting, -42. I'm subtracting, so I'm going to the left. This is going to become -62. So again, try the next one on your own, very similar to what we just did. So hopefully you started with simplifying what was on the inside of the parentheses, and you would start with that division. So it really is 6 minus 2, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. Then I'll subtract 6 and 2 to give me 4. Then I multiply the 5 and the 4 to give me 20, and add the 19 to give me 39. So now we're going to tack on some square roots. And so square roots act as a grouping symbol. We want to do those first, and then we're going to do the exponent. So square root of 49 is 7. Minus 6 squared, and then 6 squared is 36. This is going to give me -29. So go ahead and try the next one on your own. So we're going to go ahead and do that square root first, and that gives me 9. Then I'll square the 10, which gives me 100, and your answer is 109. Okay, so now we're going to tack on absolute value. So remember, absolute value is just the distance that a number is from 0. And they also act as a grouping symbol. And so I would start with doing 8 minus 14, and that's going to give me -6. So how far away is 6 from 0? That's what absolute value is telling you, and that would be 6. And then I would evaluate the 2 squared, which is just 6 plus 4, and that gives me 10. So try the next one on your own. So hopefully you started with doing 12 minus 16, which is -4. This is an interesting one. So there's technically a -1 in front of that absolute value sign, so that acts as a multiplication. So whatever we get for the absolute value of -4, we're then going to multiply by -1. So I would simplify this as -1 times, well, the absolute value of 4 is +4. But then it's funny because then I'm going to multiply by -1, so it becomes negative again. Plus 9, we get 5. That was a good one. I really like this one. When you're watching this video, and if you have any questions on this, please ask, because I think that's a challenging concept. All right, in our last example, finding the error. Gotta love these. So I want you to take a second and I want you to see if you can find the error made in this problem. So when I try to find an error in a problem, usually it's when I'm checking over a student's work and they're not sure what they did wrong, I try and solve it on my own. And so if I were solving this problem on my own, what I would have done is I would have simplified what was inside the parentheses. And that's exactly what they do. So our first step looks to be the same, except I see this 8, okay, whereas I have 4 squared. So I'm thinking, okay, well, they performed that operation at the same time, which is fine. You can do that because parentheses and exponents, those are going, obviously those are the first two, and the parentheses and the exponents are separate. They're not going to affect one another. However, 4 squared is not 8, it is 16. So it looks like that's their first mistake. But you never know, they could have made more. So let's see, I know that 3 times 7 is 21 and they have that. Okay, so then from here, obviously their answers are going to be different. The correct answer is 25. But they only made that one mistake.